Okay, great. Well, no need for formal introduction to them because we're well acquainted now. But great. So this is Howard. Howard is the managing director at ADA, which is a branch under One Music.
Yep. Division of, yeah.
Yeah, for Division of.
I'm managing director of the UK business.
What is ADA for those who don't know?
Yeah. Okay. So ADA is it's a division of the Warner Music Group. Warner Music Group, one of the three major copyright, master right businesses globally, and the others being Universal and Sony. And they are historically record labels, whereby, for those of you who don't know, the basic premise of that model is they're a copyright owning business. Artist signs to the label, go too much into that detail, but in return, for an advance and a recording contract, they assign their copyrights to the company. Historically, it was for life of copyright. That's changing, which we'll touch on in a bit. But they're still basically rights acquisition and exploitation businesses, to really embrace it. The Alternative Distribution Alliance, what it does is provide a range of services to independent partners who basically retain their own copyrights. So we're not in the business of acquiring deals of rights of people. We're in the business of partnering with them to provide the infrastructure for them to release their records. They remain independent, therefore the definition of independent is retaining their own rights, really. And we get their records to market through exactly the same channels that the rest of the Warner Music Group uses. Same supply chain to all the digital services, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, etc. Same retail accounts and all the other various operational and marketing and promotional services that are used within Warner. But instead of us acquiring the rights or having a rights deal and paying the artist a royalty, which is what record label deal is, it's basically the inverse, whereby we retain a fee in return for paying our services and then pay the majority of the net revenue after any costs go back to the contracting party. And so, I mean, very, very crudely, you could say on a record label deal, the artist would get 25% of the split when it's recouped after their advances be recouped, and the company keeps 75, but they pay all their own costs out of it. We're the inverse. We keep approximately 25 and pay 75 to the contracting party. And there's two different types of contracting party with us. One would be an independent label, and so we have some labels who have big catalogs. They may own the copyrights with the artists who they sign with. That's not our business. We partner with them to distribute the catalog of that label. We have dance labels, reggae labels, rock labels, pop labels, and a scale business. The second type of partner who we would deal with would be an artist, an independent artist. And this is really a big growth area of the industry, because what's happened with increasing frequency is normalized, is that artists are no longer doing rights deals with major companies. They're choosing to retain their own copyrights because they know that by retaining their own copyrights and partnering with a distribution or label services business, they can actually reach as many people, but as we just discovered, make 3 times the amount of money on a much shorter deal and own their copyrights. So ownership is a key part of this. And so artists putting their own music out and not finding deals is now the new normal, really, and is the big paradigm shift in the recorded music industry in the last 10 years. It's been around for ages, but it's really expedited. Obviously, the internet has democratized ease of access for anyone to reach the market, but also social media. Well, I always say record companies are finance partners, creative partners, in so much as like A&R or getting content, creative assets made, videos, whatever, distribution partners and marketing partners. With social media, you don't need a market partner. Market means create demand. You build an audience, create demand with your audience. We can all do that by social media platforms. So if you no longer need a marketing partner, you can do a distribution deal, you can make your own content. People are starting to, what is it I need a record label for? So the distribution sector is becoming increasingly important and increasingly valuable globally as more and more and more and more artists are making content and choose to self-release. There's multiple ways you can do it. You know, you can make your own track on your laptop and you can literally upload to a direct digital platform off your phone. That's here. And there's a whole range of different companies with different offerings through to really the three major offerings at the top, which is us and the Sony and Universal equivalent, where we've got full global reach, we've got an infrastructure, we've got a lot of skills, we can put a lot of capital available, and you can go any point in between basically. So that's the sort of landscape of, it's a long answer. It's the landscape of what we are, but also why we are, and our place in the market.
What would you say the key differences are then between like the major distributors and like the self-serving ones, such as like Ditto?
Well, I mean, when Ditto started, Ditto was what I would call a DIY platform. You'd log onto a portal, you'd upload your track, and you'd pay per track being distributed, 20 quid a year. If you put 10 tracks up, you're paying them 200 quid a year, 10 quid per track. But Ditto have changed a little bit, but just use that model as a premise. You know, there's other companies, DistroKid, TuneCore, CD Baby, various other that you would call DIY or direct upload platforms. The key thing with that is you're not really getting, it's low touch business. You're not getting many people involved. You don't have access to skills, expertise, infrastructure. You know, it's a ticketing system. There's a problem where it's not appearing properly on Apple. Who do I contact? Send an email and you get a ticket and you're in a queue to have your thing sorted, because at the end of the day, they're not making a fee off it. They're taking 20 quid per track. And the further up the chain you get, the more skills, leverage, infrastructure, opportunity, you know, global reach, etc. So we're a bit more in the sort of high touch business. We don't take on lots and lots of stuff. We tend to look for things that are already moving and are showing signs that they're going to deliver a certain level of commercial success. So we don't tend to get involved in the new artists or brand new things or people in their bedroom going, hey, I've got a track here. We don't touch that business. We tend to get involved in things where there's a real potential for commercial opportunity.
What are the key things that you identify in like new talent that kind of tells you, okay, great, these guys would probably be commercial and give us that level of success that they're looking for?
Obviously, it's all in the data, streaming data, social data, you know, whatever that is, engagement, creations, shares, sentiment, you know, other things are cultural signifiers, because sometimes things come in and out of culture. We can listen to things and look at things and go, hey, he's got good numbers, it looks okay, but you have to sift a bit deeper. Is it a one-off? Why has it got good numbers? Has it been on some Spotify playlists that have got huge followings? We think the biggest Spotify playlist on these playlists on Spotify, Peaceful Piano, which is 8-9 million people, doesn't necessarily mean they're music fans who are going to be like constantly following an artist. They'll lean back, they'll put something on and listen to it, and if it's top of that playlist, it's going to have a lot of streams. Is that something we should be in on or not? Hard to say. Depends. We have to look a little deeper, but probably not. You know, we're looking for things that are a little bit more substantive than something just skimming signals of one bit of data. So we sift through it. We look quite hard to find things that are showing various signs of interrelated data and signals that it's going to be someone who's going to be a good fit for us as a business.
Of course, like relationships are like a big part of music industry. How do you focus? What's your focus, and how do you ensure that you maintain those quality long-term relationships and partnerships with people?
Yeah, the music industry is a relationship business. You know, it always has been. Obviously, it's increasingly, you know, data oriented as the world evolves, rightly. But I would say spreadsheets and data don't sell records. People do. Spreadsheets and data don't sign and sell records. Humans do. And at the end of the day, I can't remember. There's one of your questions at the top. I can't remember what it was. I'll bring it back there. You don't need to know anything different to succeed in music industry, or I suggest any industry. You don't need to know anything different. The key attributes for success in this industry, and I would imagine many others: belief and passion, right? Especially in the music industry, because if you are just passionate about something and exude that passion and belief, and you meet someone else who might be in a position that they, you may want to do business with them, or you might just admire them or whatever, and you exude that passion and belief, you're going to connect, right? And if you just have that, if you're passionate about the music, the industry, trying to make something happen, you're just going to give off that energy. And that's ultimately, I know it sounds a bit woo-woo and a bit wishy-washy, but that is ultimately how you form and maintain relationships. You just become known as someone who's got that energy and that passion. I'm bouncing around a little bit, but there's one of the points on there was what you're looking for when you hire people. That, the process I have for hiring is the HR department at Warner sends through some prospects. Me and the hiring person will look at them, and we'll go, yeah, that looks good, they look good, whatever, and then the head of department or the hiring person will do the first round, because what they're looking for is someone who's potentially got the skills and experience. I join in the second round because what I'm looking for is the passion and energy that can make a contribution to our company culture. Because if you get loads of people through, we've had so many situations where someone has been more qualified on paper, and in reality, the skills and experience that they have been more applicable than someone else. But the other person has got the job because not only would they be competent and they've got room to grow, they'd have the energy, the passion, and belief that you need in a company culture to make a company thrive. Because if you have got a team of people who are all joined up to the culture and they're living it and they're contributing to it and they know they're in a great culture, you win deals, you keep deals, they're motivated, that you give them autonomy so they can contribute as well as they can to their job, and you become known for that. You have a reputation. And that is a major, major thing of attracting and retaining business and delivering success. It's all interlinked, in my opinion.
What skills and stuff really shine when it comes to your success?
I identify things that I think can sell. I understand the distribution business. I understand independent companies. I understand how independent companies and independent artists operate and how they market things. They're not necessarily a hits business. They're quite often an audience and a fan base cultivation business. So understanding how to attract and retain, grow fan bases and monetize them, but also remain credible. So you have a fan base for a long time, not a short time. And along the way, and the bit that I kind of do now, and that interests me now at this point in my life, is more the business management and the strategy and the strategic thing, and looking at the market, seeing where the market's moving, seeing what the competition are doing, trying to regulate different at the point of difference. It's all a bit combined.
What does distribution deal look like? And is it standardized? Is it tailored on a case-by-case basis? And also, you said that the rights stay with the artist, yeah, in this whole business that you're in now. So what's in it for you as ADA?
Okay. Our deals, going back to the companies here and companies there, standardized. They're template deals, right? You upload a track with TuneCore, you're going to get a one-sheet template agreement back. Very simple. It's automated business because it's a pay-per-play, pay-per-upload business. So you're not getting touched very often, so you need very simple basic solutions. You need an agreement, obviously, but it's a one-page you download. We're up here, and the deals are all different and they're bespoke. So every deal we do is different. The BA department have got some templates, and if they make one agreement with one lawyer, they might use the same template, but the terms will be different. So every single deal needs negotiating individually. That was the first bit. What's the second bit? What's in it for us?
Yeah.
Well, we retain a fee. Right, so going back to the thing of when Central record label, they give you a royalty 25% and they keep 75%, but they're paying costs out of what they keep, right? Whereas on this model, I'm going to keep 25% for providing all the services. You're going to get 75%, but the costs are yours. Now, what I might do is okay, I've had a good look at your business. I can see it's going like that. When we get involved, it's going to go like that. I'm confident. I make a forecast. I can make some money available. We're going to make a drawdown available of 100 grand. It's your money, right? But I'm going to make it available. So because I'm not expecting you to stumble to 100 grand. You might have made the money through the sales, but we'll make it available. We'll deploy the money. We're going to recoup it off the top. And then we're going to take our 25% off the top. I'm going to pass you the net. Okay. But so it's low margin business. You're not asking the question, but the kind of deeper answer to this question is we're actually more of a low margin business as opposed to the right business, which is a high margin business. We're also a low risk business because the costs are ours. The costs are yours. So, but I'm making calculated low risk bets because I've looked at the data and I've got confidence in our methodology and I'm confident I'm going to get my 100 grand back. So it's very, very rare we lose money on our artist, right? Because the outlays aren't that big and we're recovering from day one and it's your money we're recovering. So nearly all of our deals are profitable. They're profitable at this kind of level. Let's say anywhere between like 30 grand and 300 grand, right? In a year on an artist. The label model is high risk because they're signing artists early. They have to get them early because it's competitive. As soon as something starts moving, all the big dogs are on it and the checks are flying around and it's like, oh, we got that. It cost £750,000. But to get our money back, we're going to have to really bet big on it. And we're in for another £750,000. So it's really got to work at that level. This is where you get a lot of things don't work. A lot of things fail. But when one works, for every, they used to say it was 1 in 10. People now think it's between 1 in 30, 1 in 50. I haven't got a clue where these numbers come from. But obvious examples would be like Ed Sheeran, Dua Lipa, Lana Del Rey, whatever, Billie Eilish. When they go really big. And the company's on a big margin. So the profit margin of the company is huge, but it also has to cover 49 losses, which could be equally as big because they've had to go in the same level. So that's that business model. Our business model is low risk, low margin, remain profitable, but the profit margin in our sector is not as big as it is up there, but in aggregate, it adds together. Okay, cool. So it's kind of like a roundabout answer to your question, what's in it for us, but thought I'd explain the business model a bit there.
Okay, great. What would you say are the major changes over the years then that you've made in the company or you've seen to the company that have led to significant...
Within the ADA business, I've been there. Okay. So I started in 2013 and at that time, tiny bit before then, in the noughties, downloads come along, iTunes were king. Physicals going like this, piracy, market change, consumer habits changing, etc. No streaming in the noughties, okay? So it was still people paying once to buy a download or a physical, but that was the only time you got money out of me. And the industry was going like this. And because it was recorded music, because it was going like that, there was less and less money for labels to invest in artists. And they were getting, because they're hit businesses, that's their raison d'etre, they needed to be having things of a level of commercial success. They started getting a lot more cautious and risk averse on their investments. All of which led to artists starting to go, particularly more like what you call heritage artists, who the label loved them 10 years ago when CDs were big. But through this period where physical had gone like this and maybe a new audience weren't consuming them as much, the labels were starting to go I'm not sure about you anymore. And the artists were going you don't love me anymore. I don't want to sign with you. So at that point in distribution, it was largely around distributing independent catalogs of independent labels. And you start to see the first few artists, merely disgruntled artists, saying, we don't want to sign to a label. We want to do it ourselves. We never got paid from them again. Because when you sign a deal, you might get an advance to start with. But quite often you never get paid again because you may not recoup that initial advance. So you don't get paid again. Distribution, we pay every month, right? I've lending you 100 grand. Once I've got it back, you'll get paid every month. and we'll get onto Central Cee in a minute. Right, we'll talk about how we can make real money at it. But we're starting to see some more like traditional artists who were still sort of selling physical and a few downloads, but they were the first ones to say, we don't sign to a label, we want to do distribution. 2013 was the year streaming hit the bottom of the statements. It'd been there for a couple of years as a sort of like experimental early tech play or whatever. And everyone could see like, yeah, this makes sense, but it's not making any money. 2013, people started seeing it as a line on the bottom of the statement. And it was like less than 10% of their earnings, but the previous year had been nothing. So it'd grown and everyone was like, this is going to come. Streaming came, changed everything. Hand in hand with the second wave of social, particularly Insta coming, Twitter coming, videos starting to really explode. And at that point, a new wave, we had to pivot the business. It was like, right, okay, these people who were disgruntled that the record label didn't love them anymore, we don't really love them anymore either. What we need is streaming artists. So that was the first major pivot of the business. And at that point, we had an artist called Major Lazer, and we had an American rapper called Macklemore, and they just both like exploded across the streaming and YouTube. And we started we just changed the nature of the business. So, I had to make a decision. I've got some people doing this, and I'm going to move the business to that. So I had to sort of restructure, I had to hire some different skills in, had to sort of invest and double down into building our streaming business, basically, because clearly that was the way it was going. We had some labels where they were big on physical, like classic rock labels. They weren't really doing much streaming business. Out. We brought more dance labels in, and we brought people who were having success 2014, 2015 in streaming. And we started to really build the business in there. Then what came was the second pivot. And it's good to keep pivoting or evolving. You just got to keep evolving and meeting the needs of the market. This was like a music industry trend, and to move into streaming. 2015, 16, they became a prevailing cultural trend, which you have to kind of always be like, see which way the cultural winds are blowing. What happened in 2015, 2016 was, obviously hip hop's been around for a long time, but it really started gathering pace locally on a local level in all markets. And it became a real emergence of a new wave of British rappers. Historically, they'd been signed to major labels because they were having hits and the major labels wanted to sign them. 2010. When that went away, the major labels got rid of them, and the next wave couldn't get deals. The next wave had to work out how to do it themselves. Skepta and JME made That's Not Me for 80 quid video and self-released it in a distribution deal. When rap makes culture and the labels come back in because they're seeing the data and they're going, oh, rap's back, we can have hit. They go to artists like Skepta and JME going, hey, we want to work with you now. To which it was like, fuck you, we worked out to do it ourselves. We're staying independent. That was the pivot, because we're sat there going, okay, independent artists, they don't need a marketing partner, they don't need a finance partner, they don't need a creative partner, they need a distribution partner. So we pivoted heavily into rap at that point. Signed Wiley, signed Stormzy, signed Tracey, signed Bugsy Malone, a whole raft of artists, and we built a rap business. And because we'd already done the groundwork in the streaming business, now we had a rap business. And we continued to grow that and excel in that space. Had a lot of big success because, to my point earlier, market means create demand, create an audience, create demand. The best digital marketers in the industry are rappers. They've got huge audiences. They know exactly what to say to their audiences. They know exactly what their audiences want to hear. They know what time of day to say it, how much spend to put behind a post, what a post should look like. Incredible marketers. And it's label services and rap is perfect marriage, because ownership of copyright, stroke not assigning copyright to a corporate business that'll never give you copyright back. Culturally, copyright ownership is like perfect fit for rap. So that was a big pivot. We were already in the dance sector. I've got a lot of my historical backgrounds in the dance space as well. So another, it wasn't really a pivot. It's more of an evolution. Rap was very significant right up to COVID. And when COVID came along, historically, a lot of the big dance producers, if they'd done a big track, a crossover track, they would sell that to a label for whatever they could get for it, 50 grand, 60, 80, 100, 200, whatever the market would pay for it, because they were making all their money touring, DJing in clubs. Come COVID, no one's touring, and they don't own anything because it's to sign all their records to labels. That's when we started to see a change in the dance space. Fortunately, from my relationships and my connections and me thinking about this stuff all the time, thinking, right, okay, I need to speak to some of the dance acts and say, look at the rappers. They earn everything. You don't earn anything. You need to get in this game. Fortunately, we got some deals away in there. So we now work with, these are mainly UK artists, with Sonny Fodera, Camelphat, Clapton, Gorgon City. There's some big drum and bass artists, Dimension, Shy Effects, Hybrid Minds. We've got a very strong hand in both like crossover dance and drum and bass. Their own. So that was the pivot there. And at the moment, it just constantly keeps evolving, and it's quite an interesting topic. No one can really see clearly what's culturally on or happening at the moment, and a lot of I think a lot of people would agree and believe that cultures now largely exist online and not so much at a street or a community level. And so we're just trying to work that out at the moment and see if we need to make a pivot again. There's a feeling that there'll be a re-emergence of bands in the next 12 months. A lot of people, particularly older men, have thought that for a long time. I've never cared about it, but I actually think, and it sounds ridiculous, but I actually think the Oasis reunion next year is going to inspire a generation of people to pick guitars up. Because when they announced their reunion, the way it dominated the news in the UK, to that thought, I was like, wow, what's it going to be like when they actually start fucking playing? And I think how these things play out, I think people will start picking guitars up. But there's already an uptick in bands already. It's already happening, but I think it could explode next year.
I saw a few days ago actually on a Central Cee's manager's story.
Yeah.
That he was picking between you guys, someone told me, and so I saw that. And I was wondering how did working within
about. Yeah, someone I have an Instagram account, but I only have it on my desktop at work. I don't have it on my phone. It's it's too much distraction. I get stuck in doom scrolling for too long. I don't have anything done. Someone told me, yeah. It came about in exactly the same way that all our other rap partnerships came about. So quite a few rackers have historically started off on the more like DIY end of things. Just, quite often they've been making music purely for a creative thing, not because they're watching the industry, want to be in the industry or anything. Purely a creative thing, inspired to make music, or called to make music, something to say, and would look around and find out where other people are releasing. Quite a lot of rappers start off on a direct digital distribution platform called Ditto. Stormzy started there, D-Block Europe started there, AJ Tracey started there, Dave started there, and in fact, Ditto still have catalogue pieces from some of those artists because they were paying 20 quid a track to upload. Dave and AJ Tracey, Thiago Silva, they uploaded for 20 quid. And, when we worked with AJ Tracey, I was like, can you move that over to us? And they're like, why would we? We get 100% of everything. We're not going to give you anything. You have to leave it. Quite right. I'd try, but it's quite right. And what I would do is I'd sit and look at the data every week, and I knew who the artists were, and I could see what was going on in the scene. And I bring back to my point earlier. Those platforms are really good for quick ease of access into the market at a low cost way, but you're not really going to get any skills and solutions. And now, if you're an artist who just at this level, I'm perfectly happy. You can do your social, do a bit of spend, do some shows, whatever it is, videos get seen, TikToks get seen, fine, whatever. But you never know how you're going to do when you set off, right? If you're recording music hours, put a track out and all of a sudden it starts going like, it's like, oh, people like me, I could get somewhere here. Part of my job is to sort of, as I mentioned earlier, I'm looking for things where it's commercial. So there's proper commercial upside that's worth putting our skills against because I know what we're capable of doing. And so I'd look and see how things are doing, and I'd see, all right, it's at a certain level, and I could see they'd hit a level and stay at that. And my phone call is, I can see what you're doing here. Come with us, and we can make it go like this. And I'll tell you a true story about Central Cee. That they approached us initially, and I turned it down because at that point they were on 200,000 streams along with every other rapper, and I've got no way of knowing because it was very early. But we kept tracking it, we kept watching it, we tracked everything, and we saw it got to A Day in the Life of Molly had got to 1 and 2 million streams. I'm like, okay, well, this is moving. This is elevating itself out of all the other wannabes. Because, rappers got so big in 2018, 2019. There's a lot of music into market. When that happens, the job becomes like sifting out what's quality and what's the proposition. We could see it stuck his head up, and I called him back. And the LSESU Music Hub, and I listened to it, and I was like, it sounds fucking great. We were right in it with AJ Tracey at the time, and I just thought he's a great rapper. He's as good as AJ. So I ran back and said, yeah, let's do it. I want to do it with you. And we just got to work, and it exploded. You just don't know, do you? And we did that first deal, and that first album went in at number 2. The rate it went like this. Obviously, every label in the land, not just this land, America as well, were all over him. But we'd formed a relationship, because that's the people. Can touch on that again, and I managed to. The global chairman of the business, they met him at the owner's house. Everyone, all the different companies would fly around to meet him, but I managed to whisper in their ear and go, this is going very well. Why don't we just do another album? You can slide it, it's yours. You keep it, right? We can put a bit more money up. And they were like, why don't we just do that? So we signed a second album because they're also very shrewd and smart people. They were like, if this is working now and we own it, and it's only going to go like this, why would we do a deal? Why would we sign our rights on? People who are offering like 1 million, 5 million, and they're looking at their statements and going, right, our statement's gone from there to there in like 6 months. We believe in ourselves. It's going to go to there in like 24 months. Quick maths. The fucking 5 million quid we're being offered is nothing compared to what we think it's going to be here. Let's just do it again. So we went again, and I don't know what the numbers are now. He stayed with us, distribution. It got all insane, and he ended up going off and actually did a rights deal with Sony for $25 million. The thing with that is, though, what they did is not only did they keep, and they kept those albums out of it. We still have those. I actually renegotiated and re-extended the catalogue. So I still actually have the catalogue. But what they did is they believed in themselves. Not only did they believe that their value was going to go up and that they would be better off to keep that, but they also realized that their worth in a negotiation was going to go up and their leverage in their negotiating position. Because at that point, when you're starting off, someone comes on and goes, we think you're the best thing since sliced bread. Here's £1 million. You ain't really got a negotiating position. Your lawyer can try and get your best looking the deal for you as possible, but you ain't got any leverage. When you put 2 albums out, you've done 10 billion streams, you've got a negotiating position. Some people come along and go, yeah, we're going to do this deal. You're like, yeah, I'll do a deal. Rip that one up. It looks like this. So they've actually still got a high percentage of ownership in their deal. So, and it's fairly short term. So they've got a load of money and a great actual contractual deal out of it as well. All by building through distribution base, or building the value of their business.
Of course, the money doesn't just go anywhere. So when it comes to supporting like the singles versus like, I'm breaking the artist for the singles in comparison to, with the mixtapes, what would you say the differences were in your approach?
I think what they're very, very good at doing is, and this is sort of like modern way of marketing, create moments, right? The singles all became moments and tempos to put things about. Shot fantastic videos. Look, he looks amazing. The videos look great, and it was, culturally, it was just absolutely spot on at that time. Just, the rap sound evolved over the years. Grime, Afro, drill, trap, and he came at the sort of end of that point where the sound had just evolved and it was peaking of the crossover sound. He was just that guy at that time, and I tell you what else was, it's the timing. 'Cause timing can be everything when you're breaking an artist as well. As we came out of COVID, quite a few of those other artists, those older artists that I mentioned, they all really came up, we're talking rappers, really came up off Insta. And what happened, the timing was crazy because everyone was stuck in their houses. You got all the music industry marketing executives, and some of the artists thinking, this is how we do things. This is proven. We do it like this. But the next generation were coming through and they weren't on Insta. They were on TikTok. He was one of the first rappers on the come up that was native to TikTok, and it was his primary communication platform. The other ones were native to Insta and YouTube, and that was their primary communication platform. And all that lot missed it. Some of the biggest ones, like, were putting stuff out and he was going down and down. I remember speaking to one manager and he was like, how have you done Central Cee? And it's like, it was TikTok first. Everything, and he just built off TikTok to a new generation of fans that adopted him. Whereas, and the guy said to me, and this was a guy, a big name artist who'd had gold and platinum records, when, yeah, we weren't even on TikTok. People just missed it. So that change happened there. So I'm explaining that because you can't dismiss timing sometimes. The best laid strategy is, if it's at the wrong time or the wrong moment, they're just not going to bang off as well. Do you know what I mean? So, but they knew that. They knew what the moment was and they just executed perfectly against it. And I don't know if I'm fully answering your question, which is singles versus mixtape. But if they were fortunate that it created a big enough splash that the entirety of the mixtapes benefit from it. It's hard to do that. And a lot of people don't focus so much on the mixtapes now. In fact, one thing that is evolving at the moment, and this is live, I'll give you live examples. I've got a couple of big dance artists that we've had a lot of success with, huge records, and we have them on like album deals, right? Example of distribution deal would be like, we'll do an album deal with you, right? And it starts 3 years from release of album. And what's happening now is the manager's coming back to us, and we've got two examples of our biggest dance acts. Unbeknownst to each other, they're both saying the same thing, which is, you know what? We don't know if we want to release an album. And if we don't release an album, we're in a deal that doesn't end. What's the difference between being in that and a record deal that we don't want to be in? Can we actually change the deal and change it from an album to like, let's just agree the amount of tracks and then we just work singles? And that's, which is the right thing to do, you know what I mean? Depends on the artist. If you're a rock band and you want to make an album, this concept or whatever, fine. But if you're like more of a fast-moving streaming artist that's culturally relevant or got cultural capital, being on the hook or tethered to the concept of doing a body of work. We just had a quite big dance act, came free of their major label deal, came in to see us, moving over to us, and they're like, we are so glad to be out of this mindset of having to deliver albums for the label. We absolutely hated it. All we want to do is go in the studio, write singles and put out whatever we want, whenever we want there, which is ultimately what another reason why artists like to remain independent, to do what the fuck they want when they want.
You spoke a lot about like the team, like let's say Central Cee's team, and you said how they were different or like very good with what they were doing. What would you say like the main crucial things that like an artist team does that really pushes forward a success and sets an artist apart from the rest, basically.
Yeah, what the artist team does, they clear vision of who they are, what they do, and what their unique value in the market is, and are just absolutely like relentless and focused in their pursuit of delivering that. And just to use rap as an example, a rapper and their manager will come through. Quite often can be a mate, not always necessarily an experienced music industry manager, but they're the brand. They take care of the brand. Senshin is manager. Senshin especially is the world's #1 expert in the Central Cee brand, and he's very particular about it. And as Steve Jobs said, it's it's not what you say yes to that it's important, it's what you say no to. What they say no to is like absolutely critical to preserve the integrity and the credibility of their brand. What we have is record industry experience. And the way I've built seeing this change, going back to between the pivot and the evolution of the business over the time, seeing more artists come to space, particularly when like 2016, 2017, when, everyone wanted to sign rappers, I was like, for us to sign the great stuff, because you know what my model is, find the stuff that I think can be like the best and do the best. Well, to get that and to be able to, I'm not just competing against my competitors in this space, I'm also competing against all the major labels that want to sign them. I've got really good people who've got skills and experience in working top quality stuff at a very high level. So I brought those people in. And then that's what we provide. And, one of my phrases that I use is we're not a hit business. I leave that to the labels. We're a partnership business. We can do hits. We can do hits as well as anybody. And we've had loads. If someone wants to come in and form a partnership, then they need to know that the team of people that they're going to be with are going to be able to help them realize what their own belief and their own vision is. And Central Cee is a brilliant example of that. How not just in we used our skills to get it good in the UK, but then we rolled it out globally as well. And actually, and this is a fascinating thing with him. Saw it really quickly, and the reason that this happened was actually TikTok. But we saw for the first time ever on a British rapper that the UK wasn't the majority of the sales. In fact, the UK was about 15% of the rest of the world. And we're like, wow, we'd never seen a UK rapper export as well as this. But it was actually TikTok enabled it to travel and was a major part of his global success. But his biggest, it might be America now, but at the time, his biggest market pro rata was actually France. And he became very big there. And they had like diamond status records of etc. So that's what happens when you put a great partnership together with some people. So when I do a deal with people, I'm not just like, oh, they could sell some records. It's like, who are these people? Who are getting into business with? Are you going to be a good business partner? Are you going to be someone who can bring to it what we need? We're going to put all this into it. Can you? We can help you. We can bring you up to speed. But I've turned things down because I'm like, I'm not sure about them. What they're going to do if we let them loose with the money, and then they're going to be able to, So we do. It is about you need two sides to a partnership. So, yep. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And when it comes to working with artists, what do you think attracts them mainly to working a deal with ADA compared to, like, let's say, Sony's on, Universal's on?
I mean, we've got a proven track record. We've got a great reputation. How it tends to work is I'll sit and do the initial conversation, and then I'll always say to the people, if this sounds good to you, meet the team, right? Because they're the people who do the work. I'm good at doing this and wagging my hands around, but they're the people who actually do the work, and you would work with on a day-to-day basis. And we set a call very quickly, and they put the team through their paces. We may do a little presentation if we need to, or ask and answer all the questions. Then I circle back and be like, what do you reckon? Is that consistent with what I was saying? I think, there's one of the questions on there I thought about, for me, the key principle, the key basis for all successful partnerships is truth and transparency. So if you get on the phone with someone, I'm always very transparent. I'm always very honest about things, always very truthful about how things work. And hopefully when people meet the team and they see it's in the same spirit because we're one culture and we all work together and we've got the same beliefs, that gets us a surprisingly high return on deals.
What advice would you give to someone that's an independent artist, let's say starting out today?
Yeah.
0 streams, never put music out, just recorded them, has some really great music, and now they don't want to sign a standard deal like a 360 where they sign their rights away. They want to, their vision is to work with, let's say, ADA in the future. What advice would you give to them so that they can get to that point where you now consider them a client and want to take them on?
I could give the advice, but there's no guarantee it works.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult. It is very difficult. It's the first thing I acknowledge. What is it Spotify get now? 120, 130,000 tracks a day globally. 35 million new tracks a year. It's a lot. And that's gonna blow through the roof with AI as well, of course. But what I would say, no guarantee that it'd work, but I think the advice would still be sound, would be have a clear sense of who your artistic identity is. Have a clear sense of what it is you're conveying or saying. Have a clear sense of who it is you are trying to reach out to. When I was a marketing director, one of the things I learned, in my opinion, one of the first rules of marketing is know your audience. Know who it is you're trying to sell to. It doesn't have to be big. Niche is great. Niche is a great business to be in. You can't reach all the people at once. You're better off to reach 100 people and have them become your ambassadors and help, your believers speak about you, and other people come along and go, oh, okay. You're in the fan cultivation business, and say something worth hearing. It's very, very subjective, but make sure it's good. You take feedback seriously, and honestly. Make sure people give you good feedback, not like, oh God, that's amazing, because it probably isn't. If someone's like, it's good, but keep going. Don't put that out. Keep going. Take that seriously. And in the short term, be in direct contact with your audience. Liaise and cultivate your audience so people are engaged. It's about emotional commitment and engagement, isn't it? And build from that. And you don't need to have the biggest streaming numbers in the world to have a profitable business either. If you play gigs and you're selling things, without being too crass and commercial, I'd love to say it, but monetize your audience. Something of meaning that people would want or can collect. Places like Bandcamp are important for that.
Yeah. Okay, great. Last question. What advice would you give to someone who is entrepreneurial, loves the music, is working in the music industry, but doesn't really know where to start? They could either, let's say their dad is managing an artist, maybe even setting up their own distribution services, and something like that. So, what kind of advice would you give them? Yeah.
Energy, passion, belief, commitment. Right. If you have that, if you're into something, you're in the scene, you're engaged. You're going to shows or gigs or clubs or whatever it is you're into. If you're in studios or producing, you'll want to start reaching out to people because that's your permission. That's what you want to do. Follow it, right? Obviously, don't be a nuisance, but follow it and make yourself known to people. And it counts for a lot. It really counts for a lot. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend setting up a label services thing because they're really tech businesses. So unless you're unless you already have a degree of expertise and can get your hands on some money, that relatively significant amount of money, it's probably not that, but you know, be it in live or anything to do with like the recorded music or the publishing side of things, or performance, writing, production. If you're genuinely passionate about it, but I might sound naive, and I hope this answer is not dissatisfactory to people, but I generally believe if you have a belief and a passion for it, and it's what you want to do, where focus goes, energy flows, right? If it's what you're into, your energy's going to go there, and you're going to start connecting with people. If you have a degree of knowledge or not expertise, but like you're passionate about a certain kind of music, could be cloud rap, could be death metal, whatever it is, it's going to lead you into that community. I mean, I think a lot about, and I know a lot of my cohort or colleagues do as well, think about cultures and community. And that's why niche is good, because if you're a death metal fan, you're gonna know who your community and who else is in that culture. If you're a certain kind of like underground house music fan, you're gonna gravitate towards certain events and certain DJs. Maybe you might DJ yourself a little bit. You're gonna share a mix. You might have a SoundCloud page. You might send it to some people. It's because you're passionate and you are acted in that space.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for answering